Hi there. Welcome back to the Real Film Chronicles podcast. As always, I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brian.
And in this week's exciting episode, we're going to be talking about a little film called Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre.
Oh, nice. I wasn't sure if you're going to go for the full title or not.
Absolutely. It's Guy Ritchie. Gotta show him some props.
Did you look up like how to pronounce it properly afterwards? Or like
No,
beforehand, sorry?
We're Canadian. We can pronounce some basic French.
Can you tell me what it means? What it stands for? Like the translation?
Yeah, well, literally like ruse of war. Essentially, It's deceptive warfare tactics.
I love it. Special Agent Orson Fortune and his team of operatives recruit one of Hollywood's biggest movie stars to help them on an undercover mission when the sale of a deadly new weapons technology threatens to disrupt the world order. Ooh,
It
just happens way too frequently too, right?
Setting that world order.
And so this is the latest film from Guy Ritchie, who we talked about. Has it been just about 2 years, a year and a half since we talked about Wrath of Man?
Yeah, I guess so.
On the podcast, and we're back to another Guy Ritchie film. I'm not sure if this might be the first time we've gone back to a director for multiple movies, multiple episodes here. I'm impressed.
That's kind of crazy. And then he's got 2 movies coming out this year too.
Yeah, and the other one is The Covenant.
The Covenant, yeah.
With, I think, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about Operation Fortune with like Guy Ritchie go-to guy, Jason Statham, right?
He's back.
You got Aubrey Plaza in here. You've got Josh Hartnett, Hugh Grant, Carrie Elwes. Eddie Marsan is in there. I feel like he's just like the go-to like British dude to show up in all these movies.
If you need somebody British, you can go to Eddie Marsan. He's reliable.
And I think this is the 5th movie between Guy Ritchie and Statham, and also now the second movie with Guy Ritchie, Jason Statham, and Josh Hartnett, because he was in Wrath of Man previously as well.
Yeah, and I think it's the second one he's done with Hugh Grant as well, because he was in The Gentleman before.
Oh yeah, Gentleman was great. I mean, we probably ran through all of Guy Ritchie's movies before. Like, did you?
Oh, we did, yeah.
Since we recorded that first Guy Ritchie episode, have you gone back and like rewatched any of his movies? Have you caught up on some of his filmography?
Oh, rewatched, I believe so. But there's still a couple gaps, and they are some of the newer ones, I guess, or some of the maybe outliers. Was it King Arthur?
You haven't seen King Arthur?
I haven't seen King Arthur yet.
Shut it down.
Okay, after this podcast, I'm going to watch King Arthur, apparently, according to Brian. Aladdin, I think he directed.
Yes. No, I haven't seen Aladdin.
And then there is Revolver as well, which is going back a little ways. I still haven't seen. It's one of his collaborations with Statham.
Oh, yeah. 2005 for Revolver.
Yeah. I think, and then didn't he do another like fantasy epic?
I don't know. I'm seeing Swept Away in 2002.
Oh, Swept Away I haven't seen. Yeah, I'm not.
A movie called Star. That's the short film. I think that's one of the BMW short films with Clive Owen. So that's
right.
A feature film. And then before that, Snatch and Lock, Stock. He did the 2 Sherlock Holmes movies like back to back.
Yeah,
2009 to 2011. And then you've got The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Well, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is another one I haven't seen either.
Which is a good one, although I think there's like a bit of controversy with the main star there, Armie Hammer, that might make it a little uncomfortable to watch now. I have fond memories of The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
People in this one?
This is, I'm kind of shocked here because I quite fondly remember this movie and I only gave it 2.5 stars after 2 viewings.
Ooh.
But you know what? I mean, I'll watch it again. Alicia Vikander's in there, and Elizabeth Debicki as well. I mean, that movie is loaded. Hugh Grant as well. So I guess he's worked with Hugh Grant quite a few
3 times. Oh, okay.
Yeah. But that
also,
movie is loaded.
Yeah, it was nice. As you mentioned, Josh Hartnett is having a bit of a revival, but it seems to be particularly with Guy Ritchie, because he was in Wrath of Man, and then he was in Operation Fortune. I don't know if he's been in anything else in the last couple of years. Those are the 2 most visible ones that I've seen him in. I don't know if he's...
I'm seeing a credit for him in Die Hard, which I think was a streaming movie in the past couple months.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
Kevin Hart movie.
There's another one in
action
here,
comedy.
2022, The Fear Index. I'm not sure what that is either. And you will definitely recognize his latest upcoming film, Oppenheimer, from
He's going to be in Oppenheimer?
Nolan, yeah.
What? Oh, I'm so glad to see Josh Hartnett back. I love his earlier movies when he was starting out. Lucky Number 11, I keep going back to over and over again. You really see like the leading man qualities there, but also I absolutely respect, because I think he made a conscious decision to step out of the limelight, to kind of live his life without all the strings attached to Hollywood stardom. And now kind of it feels like he's coming back on his own terms, which is such a nice kind of arc to see. It seems to be like a very kind of healthy way, like psychologically, cognitively healthy way to do things, like to kind of meet things on your own terms. And I'm just happy to see his success. It feels like it's well earned.
It's all about mental health and taking care of yourself, also taking care of others. We got to look out for each other, Nathan.
Says you.
Yeah. So now here we are faced with Operation Fortune. And I think it's fair to say we should put this disclaimer up earlier in our episodes. I was thinking we discussed spoilers for the movie throughout, right from the very beginning.
Yes.
We're not going to dance around any subjects or anything. So if you haven't checked out Operation Fortune and don't want it fully spoiled, although I don't imagine we'll get into too much spoiler stuff because, well, maybe I shouldn't say like this movie kind of felt a little, would I say predictable or just kind of...
Well, I would say spoilers on our final thoughts, but I'd say it's kind of mid-tier Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, like you're not going to be like, oh, there's a super crazy twist at the end that I don't want to get spoiled on or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't have a huge payoff like that near the end of it or anything. But yeah, fair to say, spoilers right from the get-go here. Should I preface this conversation with the delay in this movie getting a release and like kind of the troubles it's had?
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of give the proper context here.
Yeah, that's context. I love it. So this movie, I think theatrically, it's what was supposed to come out this past March, right? It never showed up at my local theater. I don't know where it went. And then a few weeks later, it's video on demand. And here we are. We're able to check this movie out. But this movie, I think, was filmed around 2021. It was originally scheduled to come out in January of 2022. And then it was pulled from release and delayed until the fall because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And subject matter in the movie, wherein our main antagonists, the mobsters that I think they're stealing from, or I'm kind of confused on the plot right now, but they're Ukrainian antagonists in the movie, and it was like, well, that's kind of in poor light now to show this nation as a victim.
Yeah, I think props on the filmmakers and the studios for being aware and cognizant of like it was not the right time. Like Ukraine right now needs support from the world. It wasn't the right time to have a film come out where it wasn't the Ukraine government, but there were Ukrainians who were essentially buying this MacGuffin weapon of artificial intelligence that was going to upset the world order. But even having the gangster have a Ukrainian background, I think they were right to delay that release. And now the war's still going on, unfortunately, but I think it's at a point now where you can kind of separate out the movie from kind of real world events. There's been enough of a time lapse, right? Where
it didn't really seem like they needed them to be Ukrainian. Like, I don't think that really added anything. It was probably a situation where maybe I'm painting with too general a brush here of assumptions, but it's like they just chose an Eastern European country to have like their mobsters from, just to like get them in there. You know what I mean? It's like, were the mobsters as Ukrainians like significant to the plot, or could they have just like changed that to anything else and it would still be the same movie, right?
Well, you know what? Ridley Scott, if he were directing this, he would have refilmed half of the movie with Christopher Plummer in the main role and solved that problem.
Yes, you are on point.
R.I.P.
for
Christopher
sure.
Plummer.
Yes.
Yeah, Ridley Scott could have pulled off refilming half a movie in a couple months, but very few directors can do that. Yeah, I don't know the finances of the film, or the logistics of like, oh, did they have the money to go back and like reshoot entire scenes? Because like some of it you could fix with ADR, re-recording lines over the existing footage, but some of it you'd have to literally go back and reshoot some of it. So I don't know about it was a globetrotting adventure, but I'm not sure what the actual budget was compared to other really big blockbusters, right? So maybe they just didn't have the resources to do it.
The budget of this movie was about $50 million. And again, that's a lot of money. I don't know if it's a lot of money for a movie like this. I didn't think to really like compare it anywhere.
I think I have to look it up, but it looked like they were filming on location in at least a couple of these places, right?
It was kind of funny when I was looking at it. It was like, the end credits said they were like filming in like Turkey and Qatar and a couple other spots. That it was like, they were sure to say the credits said that as if we didn't really believe them. You know what I mean? It's like usually you go to like an article and you're like, oh, this movie was filmed here, here, and here, and here. It's like, no, the movie claims to have been filmed in these spots, but we're not going to verify this information. It's just like, I don't know. But
I mean,
with the
looking at some of the shots and the vistas, it looked like it was like, it looked like it was filmed on location. Like
with a $50 million budget, the movie did get released theatrically internationally, not really in North America. It was pretty limited in North America, I think, but it made about $38 million at the box office so far. So, I mean, for a movie that I think they know they were pushing back and essentially just dumping onto video on demand, that's, is what it is. But going back to the location shooting, that's one of the things that I almost roll my eyes at in a movie like this, is that every scene has to change country and like locale just to serve, like, we got to go meet these people and we got to fly halfway across the world. I'm not sure if it's just like a trope, especially in these spy movies where they just go from location to location. But I kind of felt like I'm not in the mood for this, this type of hopping around, although everything looked pretty beautiful, right?
You know what? This is like, mid-tier Guy Ritchie film. So it was like, it felt like a lot like he was just getting together his cast of regulars. And it's like, you know what? Let's have like a working vacation. We're like, let's go to these amazing locations, film a couple scenes, and then like hang out for a couple weeks maybe. And then let's go to the next country, film a couple scenes, and then hang out here. And even Jason Statham's character, Orson Fortune, kept talking about like he started the movie on vacation and he ended the movie on vacation. I wonder if that's like a meta nod to like, we're just having a fun time filming this together.
So that's it right there. It's like Guy Ritchie, and I think there were two other guys involved in writing this movie, but he writes this movie, but he goes to he goes to Statham. He's just like, listen, I got another movie. And Statham's like, well, where am I going first? He's just like, we could go here, here, and here, here. He's like, all right, 4, 5, 6 weeks of sunny spots, beautiful locations. I'm in. That's kind of.
I mean, you know what? If you got the resources to do that, is like go off and work with your friends for 6 weeks in tropical or, like nice sunny locations like that on the beach. It's like, what the hell, man? I think Adam Sandler did the same thing with like Grown Ups and Grown Ups 2. I think he specifically said is like, we just get to like a bunch of friends hanging out as we make a movie and having tons of fun, whether you like Adam Sandler's current output or not. I mean, he's doing what he loves with people he loves.
Exactly. Either way, like it or hate it, he's treating his family of friends really well. Yeah. And they're living it up and obviously doing enough that people are showing up for it. Does Jason Statham like interest you as an actor? Like, does he pull you into a movie, like having his name attached to it?
Man, I love Jason Statham as kind of like one of the current members of the pantheon of action gods and goddesses in film. I think he's in his 50s now, but like watching him move, and like he started off as an Olympic level athlete, right? I think he was in diving initially, but like I think he's gotten into martial arts and stuff too. He's like a legit martial artist, not in the way that Steven Seagal was quote unquote legit, but he's actually like, I think there was, what is that challenge where they were like kicking they do like a spin kick to kick the bottle cap on or off the bottle. There was
like the bottle cap is screwed onto the bottle and they have to like kick it off with their foot.
They have to do like a spin kick and kick it off, and a bunch of martial artists online were doing that. And Jason Statham posted a video too. It was like a TikTok challenge at one point, but a bunch of martial artists, including Jason Statham, like he shows it off and is like, this dude, like that's the thing about Jason Statham that I love. Is that you look at his on-screen persona anyway, is like you would, if you saw Jason Statham walking towards you down a dark alley, all dressed in black like that, with that serious "I'm gonna kick your butt" look on his face, you'd be running in the other direction, or like you'd be terrified, right? And I love like he's got that presence of like the no nonsense when you see him on screen. Well, he can play a range though too, right? You look at Wrath of Man, even where he's the no nonsense kind of taking names and kicking butt. But he's also got that pathos to him. And then you look at something like going back a little bit further, like Snatch, where he's not an action guru.
Yeah.
He does have, I think, a bit more of a range than people give him credit for. But I will pay good money to watch Jason Statham kick bad guys' butts. And I think the fight scenes in this movie were still on point. It's still showing like Jason Statham in his 50s could, like, I don't know, like it was believable anyway that he was still being able to do all these crazy martial arts and gun fu moves, kind of John Wick style stuff, right?
He definitely seems like a pretty reliable, like dependable, like if he's showing up in a movie, you know, there's going to be a certain quality that he brings to it, and like a certain set of skills and online,
very particular set of skills.
That's right, and like an on-screen presence that, as you said, like when he's marching towards you, it's something else.
There's certain actors on screen who it feels like they have the real world chops to back up that kind of threatening demeanor. Like guys like Tom Hardy as well. Like he'd be scary in real life if he wanted to be. John Bernthal, I think, is another guy. Like I'd be scared of him if I had to face off again. There's certain guys who like just look like in the real world, like these guys have been in some fights. They've been in some bar fights. Or they, you know, like they just have that look in their eye that you can fake to a degree, I guess, because like they are acting, of course. But like, so maybe it's my perception. But Jason Statham, I still buy him as an action star into his 50s, and I think the choreography in this one was really, really well done in those hand-to-hand combat scenes.
It was, right? Like it felt pretty grounded and like just good all around, I guess.
Yeah.
How about, sorry, go ahead.
No, like everything else in the film, it was solid.
It was solid. That's right. It's just like there are no
solid
mountains or peaks of greatness here. It's just like this is like elevated terrain, but it's not like it's not going to thrill you. How about Aubrey Plaza in this movie?
Or how about Aubrey Plaza in general?
In general, yeah.
No,
I mean,
like I thoroughly enjoyed her in this. I think like she was playing a specific part where she was doing a bit more of the humor as well, but I think she brought her own. I think she has a very kind of dry, sarcastic sense of humor, which I think you saw showcased a lot in Parks and Rec. Going back maybe to more the beginning of her career, but I think she plays that character really well. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And then there was those scenes where she was acting as, she was like the tech person. You have to have a tech, you have to have some techie on your crew to do the hacking and calling the shots. But there was those scenes where it cut to her, and it was just her mouth and the microphone, and it was very much, I think it was like hearkening back to like radio broadcasting almost, right? Where you got this sense like, here's this late night. She had like that low kind of smokier voice, and it felt like one of those programs you'd hear at 2 a.m. on the radio of just this person, introducing the music in between. I thought it was really cool. Even the lighting in that one was kind of red, almost like you're in the radio booth. It reminded me a lot almost of The Fog. John Carpenter, and there was that woman in the lighthouse who was running the radio station, and she would do the introductions to those songs, but like she would like do that lower kind of smokier, almost sensual kind of voice when she was on the radio, and I thought it was a nice touch.
Well, just like Statham, Aubrey brings a very specific like voice and performance and
Very
like
specific
everything.
set of skills.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like she brings along that kind of like darker humor, and she was like not the center of the humor here, but at first when I'm watching this movie, I'm just like, it didn't mix with the rest of the movie for me at first.
Oh,
I was
didn't
just
think so?
like, it was just very strange seeing her in this movie. And it's like, maybe I'm just too used to seeing her in different films and different TV shows where it's just like, I don't know how to articulate it exactly, but it's like, I was really interested, like, how is Statham and Plaza interacting with each other? Like, is this working? And I was kind of like weirded out for a little while, but I think when I revisited it, it's just like, they actually did do pretty well. It was just like, I think the movie needed someone like her in it to bring a different type of humor than is normally associated with Guy Ritchie, right? Because that's where you have like Hugh Grant is that perfect embodiment of the Guy Ritchie humor. And it's just like Aubrey Plaza is going to bring her spin on Guy Ritchie humor. And it was like a different Guy Ritchie, where I think a lot of these other actors were very used to working with Guy Ritchie and bringing that type of performance. Is like, I think this is her first turnout with Ritchie. And it was just like, oh, it feels different. It was different. And I wasn't like having it at first, but I think it grew on me by the end of the movie.
I will have none of this.
I will have none, right? It was one of those things where you're like, oh, yeah, I'm so used to seeing these actors or actresses in other things. And it's just like, it's kind of tough to see them in certain roles.
The danger of typecasting. Did you watch Emily the Criminal last year?
Yes, I did. And that was a tremendous role for her. Like, that was a good movie.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice breakout role, like playing to her strengths, but not having her play the exact same character, like not always like snarky and sarcastic. But this one too, and then there was some flirtation between the two of them, I think, some playful flirtation, but like they veered a little bit away from was it May-December romance?
May-December romance.
You never heard that term? Like,
no, I haven't.
Like when there's a very large age gap between the two people in the relationship, where like there's got to be like a 25, 30-year gap between Aubrey Plaza and Jason Statham, right? Like
Plaza 1984 and Statham is 1967. Crunch the numbers.
So not quite 20 then, okay.
Yeah.
But still sizable enough where it's like it gets into potentially weird territory.
It would just
like
be
it wasn't
like
as bad as like, was it Roger Moore in The Spy Who Loved Me, I think, where his love interest was like literally like 30 years younger. It's like it just feels weird watching that movie now for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a spy film, and obviously you can't not think about something like James Bond and, having 60 years of that style of spy on screen, and just like these old men hooking up with 18-year-old women. And it's just like, you're kind of glad that this doesn't fall down that same kind of trope. And it's just like, we moved on from that, and even the Bond franchise has to pretty good effect as well. How was the story of this film? Like, how was the plot of this movie for you? Did that work for you at all here?
It was solid.
It was solid. Yeah. Again, pretty decent.
Listen, the story was kind of like people pointed out online. I don't want to kind of relitigate this. There were some plot points that maybe it felt like almost that there were some subplots that might have been cut, or like it felt like there were some, how shall I put it, interesting editing choices made in terms of how some of the scenes fit together. It felt a little bit uneven in terms of pacing. Overall, the story was kind of more straightforward kind of spy movie fare. The same thing you see. I think the plot was similar almost to one of the Fast and Furious movies recently, like where they were chasing down the God's Eye, which like was about surveillance and everything.
Yeah.
But and then one of the new James Bond movies too, it was like all nanobots, but there's some kind of world altering technology. And right now, I think one of the, I don't know, maybe it was filmed in 2021, but there's been a really recent concern around AI, things like Chat GDP, and really where AI's gotten to the point now where it's like, okay, we're seeing that this could have a fundamental effect on, the way, like, the shaping the workforce and how we do things both in our professional and personal lives. So I don't know if Guy Ritchie kind of lucked into kind of that anxiety at the time, because they're talking specifically the MacGuffin. This one's an AI, but it felt like it was uncannily timely in terms of subject matter.
I wanted to mention the AI factor. It's like, this is the MacGuffin they're going after. It's literally a briefcase with this super intelligent AI that's worth more money than money is worth. Like, it's billions and billions.
$10 billion.
And I'm watching this movie with my friend, friend of the podcast, longtime listener. And at the end of the movie, we're just like, man, I don't know if the AI thing did age very well for this, because we're literally unleashing AIs onto the internet. Like, this tens of billions of dollar AI is technology that I can just play with on a website now, like, free of charge. And it's being so integrated into our searches, into everything we're doing. And it's like, it's advanced so much, at least in the public consciousness and in the news here. The technology has advanced so much that I kind of felt like it was almost a little outdated here. And it did feel like that classic trope. Here's an AI that could break every single security system in existence. And I'm like, I'm eye rolling at that, because I'm just, not that it's not technically, not feasible or anything, but I'm just tired of something. This is literally going to end security worldwide. The world is heading towards an apocalypse if this AI gets out into the wild, and it's just contained in this steel briefcase that they're lugging around the entire movie. I
think it aged fairly well, because I think people have this really skewed vision of what AI actually is. And like, the AI you're talking about is what they would call narrow AI, where it's built for a purpose. And like, this AI, like even ChatGPT, it's not acting on its own. It's still like people typing in and giving it instructions on what to put together, right? So it's not like it's going out and it's not cognitive and it's not thinking, right? So even when we think about AI, we always think about like, oh, the machines who look and sound and talk like us and think and feel. But AI, when we're talking about AI, even the AI in this movie, it's not like some crazy, higher godlike alien intelligence. It's a specific program. It's a learning heuristic program that's designed specifically to break into security systems, right? So it's, like you said, it's like the nanobots, the nanotech in the latest James Bond movie, which was like eye-rollingly ridiculous in terms of its application and its implications. But I think, like, in terms of the tapping into current anxieties, I think it did a pretty decent job, a solid job.
A solid job. We're going back to that solid descriptor for this movie. And you're not wrong. Like, it's just, I think they even say it's not designed for it, but it could be programmed to do that. So it's like, oh, somebody actually has to like reprogram this AI, but has the capability of like really upending everything. And it's just like,
just to reassure our listeners, AI is not taking over the world yet. Even ChatGPT is not. It's not as crazy as people, I think, are making it out to believe. I think it's just going to take, as a society, to take us to like create some rules around this to catch up. But I don't think it's not as frightening as I think it's being sensationalized in the media, because it's it is an incredible technological advancement, the AIs we have now, but it's not the AI that I think when people think artificial intelligence, they're thinking like more of the sci-fi tropes, and that's what it's bringing up, right? Whereas we're not at the robo-apocalypse quite yet.
Not quite. Maybe another 5 or 10 years or something. Yeah.
Then we can panic.
That's the foundation of our like experience with like so much technology, and it's like movies especially are a mirror of society, and then society becomes a mirror of our movies and like some of the fantastical stuff that we create. And it's just a matter of time before we throw AIs out there. It was just kind of nice that it did seem topical, but it's a wild thing. At least they didn't.
You look at it was all movie shorthand. I mean, you look at the hacking that
Yeah.
Aubrey Plaza's character did, and she presses a couple keys. It was like that was the kind of stuff I was laughing at. Like all the tropes that we're making fun of now that we become aware of as audience members. And I'm like, okay, I understand it's movie shorthand, but it's still you really have to stretch that suspension of disbelief now. Everything we know about technology and hacking, and you look at something really well done. I think Mr. Robot, I think was generally not perfect, but I think it was generally considered like, oh, this is a really good depiction of what actual hacking looks like. Where it says like, this is how long it would actually take to kind of facilitate this hacking, and this is how you'd have to get past the hard wall into the software. But like to have a couple keystrokes, and it's like, yeah, get that little like black window with like looks like the code on it, and I'm like, okay, sure, it's movie shorthand, but it's still ridiculous, right?
It does what it can with what it has. Again, it was solid.
I mean, or else it could be like that's just like 2 hours just like showing one hacking job, right?
And ultimately, it's not like it's a MacGuffin, right? At the end of the day, it's like it doesn't really even matter what's in the briefcase or what they're fighting for.
What's in the box?
It's just at the end of the movie, they open it up and it's Gwyneth Paltrow. That's what.
Wow. That'd be great. Well, hey guys, what's up?
What's up? It's all her Goop products or something.
What's that?
For it. Did you like the aspect? Because I really like this, where you have a government agency sending these spies in, and then they find another spy team. Again, this is not new spy movie territory or anything, but I kind of liked. This is like, of course, they're going to send in multiple teams to take care of something that's worth $1 billion trillion, right?
Well, I like how it took. Essentially, this is the workaday version of the spy world, where it's like you look at James Bond and he's working for king and country, and it's like, no, these are just like contractors. Like you got a job for me to do, give me the contract. Once it's done, you give me the money, and then like on to the next job or whatever, right? It's very kind of almost like blue collar spy work.
Any of us could be spies, really, if we just focus on it.
Yeah.
Josh Hartnett, Hugh Grant. You want to talk about any of these other actors in here? Because everybody
100%.
was turning out to be pretty decent. Like Hugh Grant was pretty charismatic on screen. I liked his character.
I think you could tell like all the actors, I think, were having a ton of fun on screen. Like Hugh Grant was having a ton of fun throughout, but then there was that one scene at the end.
Oh, he's living it up.
Where he sits down and he shows like, okay, because throughout he's been like, oh, he's like one of the bad guys, and he's this, they call him like the angel of, like the merciless angel of death or something. It was like his like background, but he seemed kind of goofy the whole time. But then like he sits down and gives that speech to the tech bros who turn out to be the ultimate bad guys. Yeah. Also very timely. And then like Mike and his team, and he's talking, and then he does that like that monologue that shows he's serious. Another trope in movies, but he does it so well. And Hugh Grant, if you haven't seen The Gentleman, check out The Gentleman, because I think his character is very similar in terms of he's very he's essentially narrating the whole story. But in this one, like he sits down and he does that countdown, and like he's got like, he shows like, oh, he's an arms dealer, but he's got a battery of missiles, and he blows up all like their satellites there and their infrastructure. And he's just like, and he has these printouts, and like, like the essentially like, here's the names of all your loved ones and the locations at this time. It's like, you got was it 5 minutes to transfer that money back to me, right? Because in the mix up, like he's brokering the deal between the sellers and the buyers for this MacGuffin, and then Mike gets in there, and it's revealed he's a traitor. Mike leads the other contractor, like a military contracting group, and it turns out he kind of went rogue and stole the AI to sell himself. But then Orson Fortune's team essentially has to team up with Greg, the gangster, Hugh Grant, but he goes in and gives that speech just to show that he's a badass, and like he is loving every minute of it. And I love that whole scene. That was amazing. Just to show like the whole movie's like, oh, he's back and forth. He's a bad guy, but he's kind of lovable bad guy. It's like, no, he's a bad guy.
Yes, he was like basically, he was kind of playing everybody throughout the entire thing. It was just he had many layers going to him. And I kind of forgot to mention Statham is working with another guy, Bugsy Malone, is the actor. He was kind of like
who was okay.
Yeah, the team sniper essentially, and it's like he had some good presence in the film as well, and especially some good sniping action if you're into that sort of thing.
I want to see that guy in some more stuff. He was really good. He was like he kind of matched that dry kind of British humor. He really felt like a Guy Ritchie character, like a classic Guy Ritchie character.
Yeah, and so he's only been in 2 movies so far, and I think he's a rapper. And he's been in 2 movies, and both are Guy Ritchie movies. He was in The Gentleman a few years ago.
Oh, was he? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to, not that I need an excuse to rewatch The Gentleman, but I might have to rewatch that this week.
And there was a nice chase scene there, too, with the helicopter and the car. And did the helicopter go into the tunnel at one point? The one
went around the tunnel.
Went around the tunnel?
Yeah, and he shoots the rocket. It's like the wrong way because he's like rusty with the chopper. It's like, okay, so he's not... I like Jason Statham's character wasn't perfect. And he's like, okay, I haven't flown a helicopter in a while. And you see it taking off and he's like, it's wobbling and you hear the warning lights going off. Yeah. And he's like, okay, so F is for like forward and R is for reverse or whatever. And whatever it was. And then he shoots the rocket the wrong way first.
It's pretty
that was a great scene. I don't know, the scene on the chasing on the moped and on foot. I don't think they didn't seem to be running super, like their lives depended on it. Like that dude doesn't seem to be jogging. They weren't like. This goes to show you, everybody makes fun of Tom Cruise and all his running, but when he's running, like he's running to get somewhere, and he's gonna outrun the bad guy. Like these guys were just like on a Sunday jog. It looked like.
Well, they probably just came back from the beach with a few drinks and just filmed a couple hours of the movie.
Well, let's say, Jason Statham's character was drinking quite heavily in this one. I think it was implied because he was taking advantage. They put in place the British government, that is, for their contractors, all like the mental health provisions and everything, and he was taking advantage of that, of the different provisions they'd have for people with cognitive and physical needs, and like part of it was like misappropriating funds to buy all kinds of expensive bottles of wine that he got Bugsy Malone there hooked on at one point.
Do you think there's going to be another one of these? Would Guy Ritchie do a sequel to this? Because the ending, which kind of felt a little tacked on, but it is what it is, kind of hinted there's like, oh, your team, we got another job for you lined up. It's just like, no, we're gonna hit vacation first. Do you think we're gonna get another one?
Negotiating back and forth. Listen, I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm still waiting for the real rock and rolla to come out. Once we get the real rock and rolla, then I'll be convinced that we can get a second Operation Fortune.
Fair enough.
Also, speaking of the ending, he wasn't just in the ending, but he was essentially he runs that crew. But Cary Elwes as Nathan, though the name of intelligent, handsome, dashing young men the world over. But he did a good job. He felt right at home in the Guy Ritchie world. And I think there was a really cool scene. Like some of the movie felt kind of generic in terms of filming, but there were some really, like, I think kind of Guy Ritchie-esque shots, Guy Ritchie-esque kind of techniques. And one of those was the opening when Cary Elwes' character is walking down the hall and you hear like his shoes hitting the floor. And that becomes like essentially the beat for the next.
Oh, okay.
There's that action scene essentially at the beginning showing the people robbing and stealing that AI at the beginning, but his feet become the beat, and I think there's explosions or something, but essentially it turns into a musical number. But it was really, I felt like that was part of like Guy Ritchie's style and panache. So like it's not from his earlier in his career that he really made a name for himself, and that keeps, like, he hasn't lost it completely. Like, you look at something like The Gentleman, which was a couple of years ago. Was that 2020 or 2019? And I think people really slept on that movie. Maybe because maybe it was more, some of his movies got more mixed reviews, but when he still got it, he still got it. And even Wrath of Man, which I think
Wrath of Man was great.
Didn't really feel like a Guy Ritchie movie, but yeah, it would end up being a really great change of pace, and a really great showcase of Jason Statham's range as an actor as well.
Did you like the scene where Jason Statham was tasing everybody in the balls?
Like, do you like the scene with Jason Statham? Yes, I like the when he was tasing people. Yeah, like that. I love that whole scene where like, oh, there's like this clandestine battle going on between people in plain view, where some of the team members, it was weird because there were other members of the team on Carrie Elway's and Jason Statham's team that we didn't really get introduced to. They were just kind of there.
Yeah.
Like those two women at the beginning who got tased were part of their crew. But then like, yeah, that was a great example too of like, oh, Jason Statham is working with Aubrey Plaza, who is his eyes and ears through the security system. And he's like, count me down. Because there's somebody coming up behind him. She's like 3, 2, 1. And it's like, he knows he's in range. It was a great way to showcase. Like I love those kind of storytelling techniques. Like, okay, it's showing how these characters are learning how to work together and how you actually can coordinate. Like the tech person is not a useless person sitting in a lab somewhere. Like they're, essential for that, for the field work as well, right? Because without her counting down some of that stuff, like he would have been lying on the floor in a pool of his own urine, right? Which, just for the record, sometimes when you get tased, you do lose bladder control. It's not your fault.
Well, and especially when you get tased in the groin itself, which did happen in this movie a couple times.
Well, I like that it showed that like his character was one of those no nonsense characters where he didn't, for the most part, he wasn't playing with people when he was fighting. He was like, he would go in for the most efficient way to put them down for good. Right.
But it wasn't when they were first fighting them. It's like they weren't trying to kill each other, which was kind of nice to. Oh,
there's a professional
when I was
courtesy.
watching the movie, it was like, oh, these are two sets of professionals, two teams, and they're not going to kill each other, but they will incapacitate one another. You're like, oh, instead of just killing everybody who come across.
Well, that's what I thought.
And then when the gloves come off later, it's just like, oh yeah, now we're playing for keeps.
Yeah. Well, that first part of that first scene where they get that guy with the AI. And he has a heart attack and dies, and they're doing that chase scene, and then they get caught by Mike's crew. Mike, and then they have all the Mike's crew has all the guns trained on them in the van, and they're cloning the hard drive.
Oh my god!
But they open the doors and I'm like, there's gonna be a massive shootout, right? And it's like, no, they just have the guns trained on them. It's like, oh, they want the drive, but we're a professional crews. We're not gonna murder each other in broad daylight here. It's like, okay, we just want the MacGuffin and you can go on your way, tail between your legs.
Anything else to add before we get into our actual ratings of this movie?
Yeah, I think we talked briefly at the beginning about Josh Hartnett and it's glad to see him back, but also like his performance in this too. I loved, it's always interesting to see when Hollywood makes commentaries on themselves, and to have him, he's playing an actor, and people are like you're an actor, act, because he's going into this like high stress, spy situation, and and they keep putting it in terms. It reminded me a lot of The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, where Nick Cage is going, the fictionalized version of Nick Cage is going undercover, and they keep telling him, like, oh, think of it as an acting gig, right? There's one scene later on where Aubrey Plaza is like, we have about 20 minutes before they figure out that we're the ones who are kind of hacking into their system. Like they were at Greg, the weapons dealer's complex. He invited them there for a weekend because it was part of their plan to get ingratiated with him. And she's like, yeah, everything's the house of cards is tumbling. They have about 20 minutes before they figure out that we're the ones who hacked into their system. We need to start getting ready to go. And she turns around and is like, think of this as like, this is the escape sequence. And he's like, okay, that I can do. Because it was established before that he was really good at stunt driving himself, and that they had that, the weapons dealer there, Hugh Grant, had actually bought one of the cars that he had used in the movie, and restored it for him. And so it's like, okay, there was some nice kind of setup and payoffs like that. But like Josh Hartnett did a great kind of fish out of water routine where he was not like the big tough guy, but it was still essential to the plot. And I love that. And then there's that little kind of mid-credit scene at the end between him and Hugh Grant there, where he was taking the lines, and he had financed his own film or whatever, and he was essentially kind of copying the real life weapons dealer. I don't know if this was a commentary as well on having Hollywood being funded by European weapons dealers, like some of that dark money and money laundering that we've heard so much about. Kind of ironically, for example, in The Wolf of Wall Street, behind the scenes and the finances, of course. But yeah, like I don't know if Guy Ritchie had intended that, but there was some interesting commentary about potential dark money and money laundering between some of the maybe more nefarious elements of society and Hollywood and the darker belly of Hollywood. I don't know if that was intended or not, but I was like, that was an interesting comparison for somebody who was kind of on the inside on Hollywood. I don't know if Guy Ritchie, would he be considered an A-lister director, right?
I don't know anymore.
I consider him I'm going to make the call right now. Guy Ritchie, you're an A-list director. Done.
There you go. You made it, Guy.
You got the Real Film Chronicles seal of approval. You're officially A-list.
Even after this solid movie. No, I did like Hartnett, and I liked that he was an actor who was like kind of famous for playing spies and action roles.
Yes.
And it's just like he's a bit fish out of water, but it's like, oh, this is real. Like he's kind of emulating some of the scenes he would have done in his movies, but this is the real deal. Yeah, they just keep pushing him further and further in because he has a bit of a knack for it. It was good. So we are ready for ratings?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just a reminder, we use the Letterboxd 5-star system with a possible like on top of that. Where do you land on your rating of Operation Fortune?
Operation Fortune, I give 3 out of 5 stars.
That's solid.
Yeah, it's solid. It wasn't. This is mid-tier Guy Ritchie, but even mid-tier Guy Ritchie is. I don't know. I just love listening to the Guy Ritchie-esque dialogue. Not Guy Ritchie-esque. It was literally written by Guy Ritchie, but I like all the dialogue scenes. I loved the character interactions. Where it fell down a bit was some of the plot and maybe some of the subplots. It felt like there were some things on the editing room floor. Some of the pacing and whatnot. I think we talked about some of the less believable aspects technologically of the story. Yeah, it was. I think we've used that term before. This is a perfect Sunday afternoon movie. Rainy day, Sunday afternoon, throw on Operation Fortune. Have a blast, man. It's a nice distraction for, was it, an hour and a half or something? I don't even know if it's 2 hours long.
Just short of 2 hours. It's 114 minutes long.
You know what? It did not feel that long at all. Like that. So like there were some weird pacing issues between some of the scenes, or weird editing issues maybe, but like overall it felt pretty brisk. Like I wasn't like it felt to me like it only felt like 90 minutes. Like it did not overstay its welcome, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean the pacing of the movie was pretty good. Like there's enough action sequences, there's all the travel, there's enough things propelling the story forward that it does feel pretty decent. I landed at 2.5 out of 5 for this. I was a little disappointed, I think, because I really liked Wrath of Man, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I haven't watched a Guy Ritchie movie in quite a while, and Wrath of Man was awesome, and I was just like, oh, what is he going to do next? Operation Fortune is just like, oh, that was fine. It just didn't blow me out of the water. And it kind of reminds me, it's just like, yeah, not every single one of his movies are going to be 5 bangers or anything, but it was a decent film through. I mean, this it is what it is. I mean, we've kind of talked about it. It was good. It was solid. I don't think I'm probably going to revisit this one down the road again, but you never know.
I had a lot of fun watching it. I wasn't trying to say anything deep about the nature of what it means to be human, or say anything about the nature of the universe. It was a bunch of fun action sequences and actors chewing the scenery and Jason Statham kicking butt. And listen, like if you go in with those expectations, I think you'll have a good time. Not a great time, but a good time, a solid time.
A solid time, yeah. Oh, before we leave,
yes,
I forgot to talk about the ratings around the internet, which we like to bring up, the Rotten Tomato score. See how we compare to it. Do you have any guesses on Rotten Tomato critic and audience rating?
Rotten Tomato, I'm gonna guess between like I'm gonna put it at 45 Rotten Tomatoes.
45. You're only 7% off.
Okay.
Rotten Tomato
52?
critic 52. Yeah.
Okay.
And audience rating is I'm surprised it's at 82%.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
so I don't think I really lined up with the overall audience here, but we've got IMDb rating. They use a 10-point system. They're at 6.4, and
Okay, that's higher than I
Letterboxd.
thought.
Yeah, Letterboxd is a 2.9 out of 5 average right now.
I'm almost right on point.
Yeah. So we're kind of falling. You're falling right down with the.
Yeah, it's a perfectly fine film. It's unfortunately it's not top tier Guy Ritchie, but it's still, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with it. I had more fun with it than I thought, based on your comments previously. You had made, I can't remember exactly what you said in a text message to me, and I was like, oh, is that bad?
Yeah.
And I started watching. Maybe because you had set the expectations so low that it seemed to excel. Maybe that's why it seemed.
That's how it goes all the
better.
time, right? I mean, honestly, it's just like if your expectations are going in low, it's so much easier to impress me at the end of it. Just tell me a movie is going to be trash. And yeah, that's another episode wrap featuring Guy Ritchie's Operation Fortune. And if you enjoy the episode, you can find more in our podcast feed or browse them over at realfilmchronicles.com, where you'll also find a whole bunch of written reviews, which we probably haven't updated in a little while, but we're getting the whip out to get Nathan to write a little more for us here. And more of Nathan's work specifically can be seen at feedthevoicesinyourhead.blogspot.com. All the links should be within the show notes itself. But I do notice some podcast feeds kind of like strip out the hyperlinks. If you're feeling up to it, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. A positive rating or review on your podcast platform of choice, like Apple Podcasts, would mean a lot to us as well. And of course, any constructive criticism is always welcome. Real Film Chronicles, take care of yourself and others, and be sure to enjoy your film journey.